Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidtless Live. So today we are going to be talking about all things product management and analytics with my friend Dave Mathias. And I'm really glad that you're here because I'm really hoping to dive in. Dave knows a lot about product management. He knows a lot about data, analytics, all the things that kind of coincide and come together for it. So if you're in product management, we're going to be talking about how to grow and become better at being a product manager. But also, if you're interested in the role and maybe you've been exploring it, how do I get into it? How do I find out more information? Where do you start? Because it seems so amorphous, as it were. So, but before we get started, I need to do the little plug here, mention that we are hiring at Foundry. So you can check out foundrymakes.com/careers. We're looking for developers, but we're always looking for interesting, cool people in the design, tech, and strategy space to join the team. We're a fast-growing company, so check it out. All right, without further ado, I want to jump in to talking to my friend Dave. Dave from GoBeyondTheData.com. Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Kurt?
Oh, living the dream, living the dream. I'm much better that you're here now.
Well, hey, same here, same here.
So Dave, tell me about Go Beyond the Data. Tell me about the work that you do. You're usually, I mean, not this year as much, but you're usually traveling all over the world doing workshops, a lot of training, a lot of that sort of stuff. What's the type of work?
Yeah, so good question, and certainly that has changed as COVID has changed things, right? But yeah, do a lot of training around product management, around data and analytics. Certainly training and coaching folks, whether it's with leaders or with people doing the roles themselves. That's what we help a lot with.
Awesome. So I want to jump right in, David, and talk about product management as a job, as a role. Product management has been around forever, right? But in the digital space, it's very new. And the one thing that I keep hearing from people that are interested in getting into this space is that it's almost like a unicorn position where you have to have some knowledge in uh, in development, in design, in marketing, in
Mhm.
sales, in team management and leadership. What do you see? What are the things that some of the best product managers have? Is it that unicorn status, or what is it?
It's funny you asked that because there's actually an article. I started writing it a couple weeks ago, and I was actually hoping to have it out last week, and then I could say, "Hey, here's the article," but I don't. But hopefully later this week. But it's actually like there's a couple unicorns out there that people are talking about, and certainly product managers are one of those unicorns. But the other one is data science, and I think there's a lot of similarity. Data scientists, and there's a lot of similarities between the positions and things they could learn off each other. There's
Hmm.
obviously some very distinct differences. Hopefully, I'll have that article out later this week, and
That'd be great.
we can. But getting to product managers and some of that unicorn status is one is if you're a person that's saying, "Hey, I want to get into product management. I'm going to college, or I'm looking to make a career shift." One of those first questions are, what is the reason why you're wanting to go into this field? Is it just because there's a high demand and you hear that it's a cool position? Because I think one thing I even hear a lot of folks that they might be in UX or service design or other areas that are looking to make the switch. And I really, I think there's a misconception of what the role is, and oftentimes it actually can be a very stressful and
Right.
a role that people burn out in
Well,
in
yeah,
a lot
that's
of
the point.
cases.
It seems like there's
Yeah.
a lot of confusion around it.
Yeah, so it's just even understanding what the role is. So certainly, like the traits that make a good product manager. I mean, obviously, there's a whole list of different traits that make a good product manager. But I think when you think of boil it down to a few things, is one is they're a good person that's curious. They're just always curious. They're always looking to learn and develop. I mean, I think a lot of roles certainly that comes up, and certainly data scientist is one of those. But it really is one of those roles that you're going to constantly have to be learning in your career, and you're going to have to be really comfortable with change. Two is you have to be a good trust builder. So are you somebody that can really do a good job building trust? Like, so not just, certainly there's a lot of relationship building, but you really have to be good at thinking about how are you building trust within the organization, not
Hmm.
just with yourself about your products and everything you're doing, your organization, and of course then you're also doing that same trust building with external too, right? So
Yeah.
both internally and externally. Three is you have to be very empathetic, right? So thinking of that high level of empathy. Now that doesn't this whole concept of empathy has been thrown out there, and oh, there we go. That was quick. But a whole, that empathy is vitally important. But empathy doesn't mean that you're just acting on emotion and that you have to just feel the other person's pain and then it's going to be coming through. Certainly, using data and other and putting in right processes to be able to not just feel, but really understand and make the right decisions based on that different information that's coming in. So I think when you think of the skills, if you're going through school, because you can start out in a lot of different things. You may be like a lot of business analysts. It's a great position to start out with, or project management even, because I think those couple, like, people are like, well, if I can't get the product management role coming right out of college, what are some good roles that I may start out with?
Okay.
And two roles that I mention to folks a lot is like either a business analyst or / data analyst type role, or like a project management or program type management role, are both good roles to start out with. Certainly if you can get into a company that has a good development program for product managers, that's great. But a lot of companies, it tends to be a role that they don't hire for necessarily right out of college. It tends to be a role that they hire out of people that have done something else first. And so, if that's the case, the places you're looking, then thinking about what kind of roles that you might want to start out with that will help get you some of those underlying skills that will allow you to propel yourself forward if that's the eventual path you want to get to.
Well, I think that's what kind of perpetuates the unicorn sort of feel to the role, right? Is like some of the traits you mentioned, curiosity, empathy. These aren't things that are easy just to list out on a resume that say I have experience
Yes.
with, I have 10 years of empathy experience, right? But I like what you said about being able to kind of look at it as a career that's somewhere I'm trying to get to, right? Versus, how do I get that first product management role? Because I think just like BA and PM, there are certifications, there are the ability to kind of get these documents that say what you're doing, right? Versus product management, which is maybe there's more schools these days doing it, but there's more things like what you're doing, right? Where there's workshops outside of college or things that allow you to start to get some more of that experience, right? I mean, so besides starting in maybe a project management or BA management role, what are some of those outside resources that I should be looking at if I'm interested in getting into product management?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is there's a lot of, since there isn't that many, there are some universities now that have actually created programs, right? Because there's always things that come about with that. But I think the good thing is there's tons of different, and being in COVID land that we're in now, there's a lot of great online all across the world that you can engage with. I was sitting on a panel with Product Camp Russia maybe 3 weeks ago or something. It was they were doing their product camp there, and they asked me to sit on a panel for something, and so being able to participate in something where you wouldn't normally be participating before, but there's a lot of different, whether it's product camps or Mind the Products or these different types of organizations. I think getting involved in those, and there's oftentimes, like in most major cities, there's some type of product association, whether PDMA is a big one here in the Twin Cities, Product Development and Management Association. And so I think finding those couple of local organizations. But I think as a product manager, what I always tell people is you have to be comfortable with other tribes, not just don't just try to find, okay, where's the product managers? Because I think that's one step. But one thing is there's concepts like behavioral science, or concepts like user experience or customer experience, and these different angles, and getting involved in some of these other groups that are also in the community, the groups that you're going to need to work with to be successful as a product manager. The earlier you can start understanding the language of those other groups. I mean, if you're in software, you're going to be working with developers. So you should, if you've never taken even an intro to programming class, you should do that. That's not hard to do. Go online, find a Python or course, whatever, on Coursera or somewhere else, and you will be able to at least start understanding some of the concepts and better empathize with one of your big customers is going to be those developers if you're going to be a digital product manager. So I think as showing that curiosity is how are you starting to early on in your career get involved. And one of the ways to get involved even is like, I stress to people is like figure out a way to contribute to the community. So maybe that's writing about something. Maybe you're learning to be a product manager. Well, like track that journey, start talking about that journey, like start a blog, something like that, or start a
Yeah.
video cast, like,
Yeah.
like something like
Start
this,
bringing
right?
the tribe to you, right?
Yeah, start to bring the tribe to you, and others are going to benefit from that, and you're going to also benefit from that higher level brand that you'll get for showing that you're willing to put yourself out there. But a lot of the things that when it comes down to it, successful product managers is they're like say they're comfortable with change. They're always looking to learn. They're looking to build those relationships, influence without authority, right? And I think one of the things that the biggest misconceptions that oftentimes happens with product managers is there's such a focus on solutions as opposed to focusing on the problem, and getting good at falling in love with the problem as opposed to like always just trying to solution things. And that's just the natural tendency is like we think we saw a problem, but we're so focused now on the solution, but did we really see that problem out there? So like enhancing your skills to get better at
Hmm.
understanding problems, figuring out like is this really a problem or not a problem, and the skills that requires. And so certainly, we've talked about a lot of these different things, like,
Yeah.
certainly like data and analytics, like you should be, if that's a weak spot for you as a person where you're like, well, I'm going to be more of a product marketer. Well, still like data is really important. So you should be thinking about how to strengthen some of those skills out there. And there's a lot of different online learning, platforms out there to do so on Coursera and these different things, like thinking about some of the skills. But I think one of the opportunities this comes about is take the opportunity to reach out to product managers that are in your communities and try to like build relationships and ask them what would they recommend. Have they gone through, like what kind of training have they learned? I think having those sort of like almost informational interviews. I hate that term sometimes, but thinking about making some connections with those people locally. Grab those virtual coffees now that we're in COVID land, and you're constantly gonna like, every week I'm probably having 10 or more virtual coffees still. Like like normally you and I do a lot of virtual or like in-person coffees, and now
Yeah.
we're just like sort of transitioning. So figuring out like in today's world, I think it's actually even easier for us to make those connections, and people are more willing to give up a little more time because they're not commuting to work and things like that,
Hmm.
that they were before. So I think showing that initiative, like a lot of people are like, well, just show me the easy button to become a product manager, like. Like if that's what you're looking to be, then you're probably not wanting to really be a product manager, because the product manager is not really looking for the. I mean, they want to be the most efficient towards the path of like making good products, but they're really they know that it can be a grind and a struggle sometimes, that career is.
So let's talk about let's shift gears and talk about I am a project manager, product manager. I'm in that space. I'm working, but I want to be more effective. I want to have a bigger impact. And just like you said, maybe I might have a bit of imposter syndrome because I grew up as a PM or a BA, and I don't have a master's or a PhD in product management or with things that don't exist. But you
There
talked
are some of
about
those
data
masters
and
out there, which is kind of
analytics
funny.
and customer experience. Are those things that I should be focused on as I'm growing in my product management career? How can I become more impactful? What are common areas that you see where product managers can improve?
Yeah, and one reason why I had mentioned Product Camp before is, and there's product camps all around the country, and we have one in the Twin Cities, but they're all over the place. Is because I think it's one of the best places where it's anyone. The whole idea of Product Camp is it's an on conference where everyone gets to put 4 sessions, and then the product managers themselves vote on it. In general, the people that are attending product camps tend to be like real like product people that are really doing the role. They're not certainly there might be some VPs of products, but they're oftentimes like the product managers or the product designers, or those types of folks themselves. So I
They're
think
the actual
look,
people getting the
they're
work done,
actually
not just
yeah.
consultants like us.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's healthy to go to those types of product camps and see what is being talked about. Even looking at other ones, like some really popular ones, good ones around the country I've actually attended is like Product Camp Austin's a really good one. I just like actually spoke at Product Camp RTP out in the Research Triangle, the virtual version. There was a lot of great sessions there, but behavioral science came up, and like I was the first speaker and talking about behavioral science, and then Kristen, I forgot her last name, was the speaker right after me. So, and she was also speaking about behavioral science and product. And so right away I'm like, okay, out of I think there was 12 talks in Product Camp RTP, 2 of them were around behavioral science and how it is related to product. So that right away tells me like, okay, this is like it's an early area within product management now, and like really processing of like how it plays a role. But it's certainly something. And like I started speaking at a lot of product camps probably 7 or 8 years ago around data and analytics, and why it's so important from a product perspective, and like that's aspect. And that was sort of like an early on stage, even though data analytics has been around a long time, just like product
Sure.
management's been around a long time.
Well, I think
But there just wasn't
you and
much.
I have talked about this before, David, is that people have tons of data and analytics, but they're not using it to make actual decisions, right?
Yes. Yes. And I think, and it's probably it's just like what we're comfortable with, right? As product managers, you're like, okay, I'm comfortable with, like, people got comfortable with the concept of design thinking and thinking of like, okay, now I'm comfortable with this. And now, so, but as a product manager, one of the things as really good product managers, they're always going to be stretching themselves, and they're not going to get complacent in what they're used to doing. Certainly getting good at something is really important, and keeping up those skills. But you're always sort of stretching yourself. So something like data and analytics was something where product managers oftentimes were stretching themselves. It oftentimes wasn't the thing that they were best at. They might have been able to, talk about some of the in the business case setting, some of those things, but when it got to things like predictive analytics and other components of thinking about how data plays a role and how they can use, whether it's in their product or whether it's to make better decisions around their product, it wasn't the thing that they were as strong with. And now they've gotten a lot better in general. Like
Yeah.
there's still some gaps there, but I think behavioral science is one of those areas where there's some gaps. And even the idea of thinking of like customer experience as a differentiator, like as opposed to like, am I looking at my product? Am I the value player? Am I the person that's gonna like be the Walmart of the world, or am I going to be the differentiated like high end product?
The
But
boutique versus the
OT, yeah,
the big box store.
yeah, but now it's like, am I going to be the company that's going to be the Zappos that's going to differentiate based on customer experience? Am I like, just thinking it's another tool in your toolbox? And as a
Sure.
product manager, we're just getting more tools. And I think behavioral science is one of those newer tools, even though it's a space that's been around for a long time, but it's more getting comfortable in the lingo. And I'm seeing it was like my last place that you were talking about me flying to a lot of places. The last place I was actually in St. Louis in early March. I spoke at the product camp down there in a couple sessions, but then I also was doing some workshops down there. Why I went down there originally. But then, when my most popular session, I did 2 sessions, was around the behavioral science, and like there was like standing room only and like that kind of thing. And of course, this is like 2 days before like the university shut down where the product camp was. So it's kind of you're like, oh, very timely. But again, like that's when you can tell like there's a lot of energy around things. Like go to those product camps, go to like whether it's Mind the Product. There's a lot of these different things out there, but product camp I like because it's a non-conference format, and see what people are excited about, see why they're
Yeah.
excited about that, and have conversations with the speakers afterwards. I mean, hey, like I presented a session. I always feel great when somebody reaches out to me afterwards and wants to grab coffee virtually, or used to be in person, and we chat more about it because it feels good talking about something that you're getting some impact.
That's
So I
great.
think use that as an opportunity. So this fall, there's going to be a lot of virtual product camps that are happening. In fact, there's like we have this organizer discussion group that we're like going back and forth of like different product camps are trying to figure out like, hey, are you guys going to do in person training anyone? And now everyone seems to be going virtually. So there'll be a lot of opportunities come this fall for people
Great.
to attend a lot of these.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and just to be clear, I want to touch on the difference between where some people confuse the two of user experience, UX and CX, UX and
Yes.
CX and customer experience design. So as a digital product manager, I should have a pretty good handle on user experience design and what its value is, what its contributions are. But where does CX come in, and why is that a different skill set? Why is that a different sort of practice area?
So I don't know if it should be a different practice area. I think it is first what I challenge, right? So right now I agree that in general. So I think like 3 or 4 years ago I asked this question to a panel, a product at a product camp, was just to try to seed it. I was like, okay, this would be a good question. I'd love to hear what people are going to respond. I was like, okay, it was around CX and UX and like where do they play a role and why are they oftentimes under different management and different leadership and that kind of thing. And like there was like sort of a blank stare like among like around that, even that question of like experienced product folks. And it just reiterated where I think, and I still think this is the case, where there's this jockeying for position and like, okay, well, some CX, and there's even like CX versus service design. And I think, again, we're getting to this, some of these different terminologies that people are using. Of course, my Google is trying to find information for me.
It's very helpful, that Google.
Oh yeah, that Google Assistant's always helpful. uh, so what I would say is traditionally people would associate UX with the digital side of the experience, while CX would be the broader soup to nuts, whether it's servicing folks, or like, you go into a hospital, right? Like you schedule an appointment online, but you go in and you go in and you get the waiting desk, and then you're like being seen by the doctor, and then you have some kind of an outpatient, and there's like the whole experience overall. You're getting billed, all that kind of thing. So a lot of CX folks would say, well, we're looking at the overall journey of the customer, and this is where the challenge is. Like, do we think like we can start calling that like, okay, we'll have these people look at the overall journey, but then the user experience people are going to focus on just the digital part of that journey. And then of course, service design might say, well, where are we just like the service end of that journey? Again, like I think these things all go together, and yes, they take different skill sets, just like in marketing, like you have different roles that people play within marketing. But the overall experience is the overall experience, and like you're going to have different expertise in that experience design. So I actually would like to just say get rid of the customer experience and get rid of the user experience, and like there's of course employee experience, right? Like another thing, right. And just go to your experience area of your organization, as opposed to a UX and a CX. And I know some organizations are starting to merge some of those together, and then there's like some headbutting between that CX and UX areas, if you really care about your customer and you want to be a customer focused organization, you need to think about, from your customers' view, they could care less about like you have a UX unit and a CX unit and a service design and a product and whatever, and they want the overall best experience that they can have. So think about, so that's where I would love to see that shift. Although from today's world, generally UX is considered more on the digital side of the house, and while the CX is considered maybe a broader, and some would say a more strategic area. Again, like I hate even saying that, because a lot of that's sort of dismissive of UX folks, because I know a lot of great UX folks that are extremely strategic and they're really thinking of big picture. And I think if you aren't thinking from that big picture view, you're really undercutting your customer anyways. So hopefully, but I even think like we were talking, like I threw that in there, the employee experience, because it's been, one of the things I do is I also do some events on the side too, and Customer Focus North. We did that, even though we call it customer focus. Employee experience is a big component of that, because your customer is oftentimes your employee, right? And so the intersection of how does that employee experience impact the customer experience and those types of things too. So I think these things all play together. And as a product person, it's just important to understand that and sort of take a step back and stop like even as a product manager, you may traditionally think, okay, this is what a product manager does. But maybe your product designer that you're working with maybe have a better skill set at one of the things that a product manager did, and you may have a better skill set at something in the design world than that designer has. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you just work together to say, okay, like we're trying to service our customer. Okay, like normally I might do this, but like maybe you're better at this. So like, do you want to take this on? And like, working with that. Now, again, that may not work in a big organization because people get very stuck on fiefdoms and that kind of thing.
That's true.
But at the same time, I think getting good working relationships as a product person with your colleagues, or like whether it's in your department or outside your department, or will allow you to have better conversations like that to, hopefully, let your skill sets accentuate to service your customer better.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Oh yeah,
If I want to know more about the work that you do, obviously I can go to gobeyondthedata.com, and you
yeah.
also have the Data Able podcast. You're a very busy man, very busy, always busy. Where's a good place to find out more info? Where are you most active? Where should I connect with you?
Yeah.
Just like you said, you love it when people reach out and want to chat. Where's a good place to find you?
Yeah, great question. And as I've gotten less and less social media social, but like I feel like I'm more social. I'm on LinkedIn, was probably the only social media I'm recommending. I've currently removed Twitter from my phone. That was my next to last one. I deactivated my Facebook. I deactivated my Instagram. So I have LinkedIn. It's Dave Mathias one, or gobeyondthedata.com certainly. But if you just want to reach out personally, and like I'd love to, like, say, grab virtual coffee. If you say, hey, let's grab virtual coffee, I'll do it. And then like say, certainly I'm on Twitter, but you're probably not going to see active, and probably at some point that will be deactivated too. So uh, trying to be more in the world with people like you, like grabbing even though we're apart, we're engaging. And I think people can do a little bit better engaging with each other as opposed to a bunch of social media messages in the
Yeah,
world.
and there's a lot to choose from, isn't there?
Yes.
Well,
Well,
Dave,
great talking. Yeah.
thank you again. I learned so much from you every time we talk, and I definitely want people to check out Dave's work, and like he mentioned, go and check out those conferences and those other things that are available out there. Those things are going to be super helpful for you in the long run. And so I want everybody to understand that we are going to be doing a bunch of live shows this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking with Andrew Benson from Straight Line Theory about user experience as a career. We're also going to be talking to Tim Bernhold this week about how to grow your career as a developer. And then we're also going to be talking about all things marketing with Gario at the end of the week. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate you being here, and make sure you do the subscribe and like thingy there. So see you next time.